Welcome to Next Chapter Retirement, the podcast where we discuss smart strategies for building and protecting wealth, health, and well-being, helping retirees shape their next chapter into the best chapter. I'm your host, Mark Erickson, and each week we help you navigate the big decisions that shape your future, from health and financial planning to Medicare and lifestyle design and everything in between. Let's dive in. I'm your host, Mark Erickson, and today I'm joined by Colette Burris from Oak Creek, Colorado. Colette and her husband recently made the transition into Medicare, and I think are you fully retired or just kind of partially retired, Colette?
Yeah, partially. Still doing my fun job.
Nice. Well, we'll talk a little bit about what that transition has been like. And I know you and your husband, Jerry, have done a lot of really just good, thoughtful planning along the way. So wanted to chat a little bit about that. And today's episode is going to be less about financial formulas and more about just kind of real world decisions, habits, and maybe even some mindset shifts that help make that transition to Medicare a little bit easier. So, Colette, when did you and Jerry first start thinking about retirement or quasi-retirement as an actual transition instead of just something in the distance that might happen someday?
Probably about 3 years ago, because we both decided to pull our Social Security at 62. So we got our feet wet with that and all the rules and regulations and timing. So it really did help on the Medicare aspect, because it's the same kind of thing, your timing on when to apply, and there's rules, all sorts of rules that you need to follow. So.
Oh, that is so true. Timing is everything when it comes to Medicare and Social Security. Looking back, Colette, what are a few things that you're especially glad you planned for ahead of time?
How much Medicare would cost, the premiums coming out, and also finding out that there is actually the income stages. Like, if you make so much income, you can be bumped into the next tier, which is higher. Before I knew all of that, I thought Medicare was just, a flat premium. You didn't pay anything. I was pretty naive. But with the help from my insurance broker and also some investigative work that we did on our own, talking to our accountant and also our financial advisor, it was, wow, there's tiers of Medicare. So we got to keep our income at a certain point. And, now, because it's 2 years down the line when they actually evaluate that income.
Right. And I am the insurance broker Colette referred to, and I work with a lot of clients of financial advisors to kind of work in concert to try to coordinate things. And you're right, it is. I mean, with anything the government's involved in, it's never easy, right? No. They tend to find a way to make things feel awfully complicated. But one of the things I loved about what you and Jerry did is you really, I thought, went into everything just very, very thoughtfully and deliberately. And so anyways, kudos to you for doing your homework up front, knowing the right people to talk to, and to try to make some good informed decisions. Love working with clients like you that are really interested and engaged and wanting to understand all the different options. So, Colette, a lot of people, we tend to, when we start thinking about Medicare and retirement and so forth, the financial aspect of it is front and center for sure. But retirement kind of changes your lifestyle, and for some people, maybe even their identity a little bit. I know you're still working, but could you share with me that, anything that might have surprised you or Jerry about that transition emotionally, mentally, anything regarding that?
Well, emotionally was very positive because Yahoo, we finally made it. We're here.
Mhm.
Financially, you know, there's always that concern before you retire. Are you going to have enough money? And although we have some assets, mine are primarily in real estate, it was a little surprising that where we live, the cost of living is just increasing so much that
Oh, yeah.
property taxes have gone up. And it's like, wow, as much as we have planned, we may be moving because we can't afford to stay in this area. Real estate costs have gone up, and we're very rural, so our cost of living, gas, groceries, all that is 20 to 30% higher than the metropolitan area that's 3 hours away because we are so rural. So um, that's been a little bit surprising. But that's
Yeah, yeah. Well, and who could have seen these high gas prices coming, right? I mean, that's something none of us would have really planned for. And, and being in a rural area, you're probably driving a lot more than many other people might as
Oh
well.
yeah. I mean, I was down in the metropolitan area and the gas was 50 cents a gallon cheaper than up here. It's like,
Yeah,
well, I could afford that, but yeah. And like
yeah.
I said, groceries, building supplies, everything up here because we are so rural. Um, it's just a higher cost of living up here where we live.
So, Colette, what was your experience like back when you were originally preparing for Medicare? Did anything about the process seem easier or maybe even harder than what you were anticipating? Even though I know you'd kind of been through it a little bit with Social Security a couple of years prior, but Medicare is a little bit of a different
Yeah.
animal still.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I leaned into the professionals that I've always leaned into through my life, later years, our accountant and our financial advisor, because that's so important to have some good people in your corner that you can use as a resource because certainly I don't have any interest at all in insurance, and that's why I've always had an insurance broker through my life because I don't want to know anything about it. It's just not something I want to know. So um, I've relied on you quite a bit for the education and information that's unbiased. Usually, you just tell us stuff and then we mull it around. But the Medicare, yeah, it was similar. Like I said, as far as timing when you apply for it, it was similar as far as the income regulation or require restrictions. I'm still learning though. I'm still learning some things. I completely forgot about the 20% co-insurance. And I'm like, oh, and Jerry remembered it. But I was like, oh, I guess I was so diligent with him. And then when I got on it, it's like I just kind of forgot about everything. So
Yeah, yeah, but with the Plan G supplement, that'll take care of the co-insurance after that, the Part B deductible. But it depends upon what type of supplement people have, actually.
well, I don't know. So far, I don't know. I have to look into it because I of course right as soon as I got a Medicare, I went to the doctor and took care of some things that I'd been neglecting, and now I'm getting some bills. I mean, they're not astronomical, but I'm starting to get some bills now, and I'm like, wow, I didn't remember that, but it's still better. And also Part D, that was a mistake on my part because I'm relatively healthy. And when I was selecting my Part D, I'm not really on any medications. So I thought, well, I'm just going to pick the one that's no premium and the easiest and the cheapest. And now I've been diagnosed with asthma and now I have to get inhalers. And I'm like, darn, those aren't on that Part D. So I would caution people when you're picking your pharmaceutical Part D to consider the fact that within that year, you might have to be on some kind of a medication. So you might want to plan for that a little better than I did, even though we get
Yeah,
to change that every year. But
yeah, yeah, that's true. And it is a little tricky with the Part D because none of us know
I
what
know,
we could possibly be prescribed at any point in the year.
yeah,
So, yeah, to your point, that is something. It's always smart to be a wise consumer and go through and do reevaluate the different plan options based on current medications during Part D open enrollment between October 15th and December 7th. It's
Yeah.
almost comical though that I mean they have Medicare Part A, Part B, Medicare Part C, also known as Medicare Advantage, Medicare Part D. Then
Uh-huh.
they've got Medicare supplements, which have their own
Yeah.
completely different alphabet. And then they have these seemingly arbitrary dates, October 15th to December 7th. I mean, who came up with all of this? It's like,
I
it's
don't know.
interesting that the government decided to just make something so challenging and
Uh-huh.
non-intuitive for seniors. And
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
know.
what were they thinking? And
Yeah, not to
anyways,
mention all the junk mail you get for all these various Medicare supplemental insurance plans. You just get like a plethora of junk mail in the mail, like, oh, here, you've got to sign up for this plan or this plan. And like,
yeah, very,
yeah.
very confusing. And unfortunately, sometimes people will just succumb to temptation and just do what's easy. And what turns out to be easy in the short run isn't necessarily always the wisest in the long run.
No.
Um, so, were there any specific steps that you took before retirement that kind of made the healthcare side of retirement feel less stressful? Aside from obviously talking to a broker, anything else that you did planning wise?
We did, like I said, we did pay attention to the Medicare income tier because, as I
Hmm.
said, I have, a couple rental properties, and so I'm getting ready to sell one this year, and we took that into account as far as which tier that would bump us up to, and we're monitoring our income so we don't get bumped up into the third tier, which is a little more expensive. That was also something, although I had been informed about it, it was just something that was kind of surprising that the Medicare premium, we both have to pay the same premium. So that was kind of interesting. Um, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's yeah, with Medicare, everything, and that is another thing to get used to with Medicare is that, many people have gotten used to having insurance through a spouse or their spouse had it through
Mhm.
them. And with Medicare, everything is firewalled. Everything is for the individual
Yeah.
rather than for the couple. Colette, one thing I've noticed is that people who retire well often retire to something, like they have some sort of plan to do something and not just quit working. What has retirement allowed you and Jerry to spend more time doing that maybe you didn't have time to do beforehand?
Well, we both are very active and we both have hobbies, and I work a lot, of course, but that's kind of one of my hobbies, I guess, remodeling our property and my rental. I had to remodel one of those last year, year before, and we invested in a house with my daughter down in Florida. So we're going to become what we call snowbirds, where we're going to escape for the winter and go down
Oh,
there.
nice.
And I am planning to quit my fun job at the end of this year and be totally retired. And I'm just going to delve into, the projects on the ranch. And we've done some traveling. We're not big travelers because I've done it in my lifetime, but the drive into Florida, we drive because we have a dog, so we don't want to fly. So we drive to Florida and kind of do a little exploring. Jerry bought a transit van, one of those adventure
Oh,
vans.
yeah, I
So,
love those.
yeah, and we have an RV, and now we're going to go start exploring Colorado. Like I said, we're both very active. Yeah, but you got to. I mean, we're not dead yet, so we keep moving.
Yeah, yeah. So important to stay active
Yeah,
and stay fit and to have things to look forward to.
yeah.
And yeah, gosh, and remodeling, homes and properties that never ends, right? There's always something to do.
Yeah, seems to be.
Yeah. So, Colette, have there been any habits or routines or priorities that maybe became more important after you and Jerry have kind of taken this step towards full-time retirement?
Yes, keeping having a regular exercise regime. I've always worked out through my life. Jerry's been kind of hit or miss, and a recent little health complication came up, and it's like, okay, we need to start getting back in shape. So now we have a regular routine where we get up in the morning and we go upstairs and we exercise together, and then in the evening we do a little, he rides his bike, I do a little yoga. So that's become more important, and also just getting out and walking around the ranch, which we do anyways with chores and projects. But definitely we've kind of amped up the exercise regime a little bit more.
Well, that's awesome. And so it sounds like you're maybe incorporating like some strength training in there along with the good cardio I'm sure you're getting, on a
Yeah.
working ranch.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I lift weights a couple times a week. Jared doesn't quite do that, but he's been doing some cardios, and then anything. I mean, he's lost some weight and he's gotten in shape, and we're toning up a little bit. But it's so important because it does, you are what you eat basically, and you are what you consume. And if you just, my mother was very sedentary when she retired. She talked about a lot of things she wanted to do and never did it. And then she was very sedentary, gained 100 pounds, and then her health just completely declined from being overweight. She had lung problems and heart problems. And I swore I was not going to do that. I was going to take care of myself. So yeah.
Well, you're so wise to kind of make those observations and make changes in your own life. And I'm sure your mom would be real proud of you to with what you're doing. So that is fantastic. Is there, there was one piece of practical advice that you might give to somebody? Colette, think of somebody maybe in their 50s who's thinking about retiring and wanting to make the retirement process maybe a little smoother and less stressful. Do you have any practical advice that you might give to somebody like that?
Get some good professionals that you can trust, and financial advisors. Start planning early. It's never too early to think about retirement. My godfather drilled that in my head in my 20s. And of course, in my 20s, I'm thinking retirement, that's way too far off. But, saving money, being careful with your money, investing some money, but definitely get a good group of professionals, accountant, financial advisor, and an insurance broker in your court.
Yeah, great mix of professionals right there.
Yeah.
Colette, were there any assumptions that you may have had about retirement or that Jerry had that turned out maybe not to be true?
Probably time. We didn't realize that as we have aged that we're not as productive as we used to be, and everything takes a lot more time. When we start a project, we'll get that done this weekend, but 3 weekends later we're still working on it. So we give ourselves a lot of grace, but and we don't work as much. We're more into enjoying little morning vacations, we call it. We sit on the porch and have our coffee and talk, and then we get at it. And so we don't spend as much time working, a little more enjoying, kind of a nice, better balance in life now.
Oh, I love that. Balance is everything. And, chores can be chipped away at. So
Yeah.
you maybe don't feel that need to just hammer it out in the shortest time possible. And you know what? I'll bet the quality of the project may turn out better because you're not feeling rushed and pressured to do it. And so that is a good thing. Is there anything that you think you might have done differently if you could go back like 5 or 10 years? Not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but does anything come to mind? Or
No, I don't think so. Other than, like I said, being a little more realistic about picking a prescription plan.
Yeah.
No, because we planned it pretty well, I think.
Yeah. Well, and Colette, you got to give yourself a little grace on that one too,
Yeah.
because none of us have a crystal ball.
No.
Anyways, we'll just pivot and switch to a different one during
That's
open
it.
enrollment.
Be adaptable.
Well, be adaptable, be flexible.
Yeah.
Well, that is fantastic. Well, Colette, that's all the questions I had for you today. I just want to tell you that I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your taking the time to join us on the podcast. This is the first time I've actually had somebody who's retired or is on that path to retired on the podcast,
Good.
as opposed to the normal, financial advisors and things like
Yeah.
that. So I appreciate your joining me today and us trying something a little new.
Well, I am thankful I could pay back a little for all the help you've given me over the decades.
Oh, well, it's been my pleasure. And anyways, by the way, listeners, if you're approaching Medicare eligibility and want clear, practical advice, you can find resources and connect with our team anytime at nextchapterpod.com. Thank you for listening to the Next Chapter Retirement Podcast. Please like and subscribe and share this with anyone planning their next chapter. For help navigating Medicare, you can find helpful resources and connect with our team at nextchapterpod.com. Until next time, plan wisely and live fully.